we obviously are at the junction of a very interesting time in Kenya's politics, but we've just come off of burying the late Raila Odinga. He's left the stage. And I think that, and I'll be bold enough to say at this point, that you were not given ample opportunity to speak on what you feel about Raila Odinga, the man in a position where the world was watching. You were his running mate. You were his legal counsel at some point. You worked with the man for a very, very long time. And I want to get your thoughts, first of all, around what you did feel about him and what you think going forward. Let's start off there.
It was a sad and an unexpected loss, noting that the brother had just announced, yes, he's been unwell, but recovering. And, so there was hope that he would come back home. Mm-hmm. So it was a shock to everyone. But saying that I wasn't given ample time is an understatement. Mm-hmm. I wasn't given any time at all. You look at the regime, good to give him a state burial, but wrong to try to own him to the exclusion of others. Kenya, by definition, is a multi-party state. So every state function, because the state includes the people. It's not a state for leaders in office. It's a state. The Kenyan state includes everyone. Therefore, both at the Nyayo Stadium and at the Bondo funeral service, there ought to have been recognition of the opposition and official recognition. Mm-hmm. Kalonzo did mention our names when he was given an opportunity, but there ought to have been formal recognition. If time doesn't allow speeches, we went there to bury Raila. But to fail to give us to take any note, they took time to recognize members of parliament, diplomats, dignitaries there, mention everybody, but you want to sort of erase the presence of the opposition. At Nyayo Stadium, it was even worse, but we took it in our stride. We went there to bury Raila. We buried him. And now in forums like this one, we can say what we could have said. Yeah. What would you have said? Because looking at the proceedings, I saw a regime that was in a hurry to milk political capital from the occasion. You could see choreographed talks, especially from some of the ODM brigade, insisting about staying in the broad-based government, which was not the subject of the day. The subject of the day was the burial. You could see choreographed conversation. Those who didn't follow the script was Siaya Governor James Orengo and the Secretary General of ODM, Sifuna. Everything else was supposed to flow. Even calling the Luo Council of Elders, the CARE, to come and endorse it. It was quite bizarre in my view. And it's a desperate move because you don't overdo it. And we just watched. But one thing is certain, that there will be ripples in the political landscape following the death of Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, not just in his party, ODM, across the board on the political landscape. Whether Dr. William Ruto and his KK brigade will be able to hold on to the goodwill left behind is something to watch. but I don't think. Yeah.
When you talk about the man Raila Odinga, and he's been described as an individual who never harbored any grudges, you know. You talk about his detention by former President Moi, and he got out and worked with the man. You know, you look at his differences with Kibaki, they worked together. His differences with Uhuru Kenyatta, they worked together. Even
I also disagreed with him.
And you ended up being his running mate.
Yes.
But you look at his burial at a time when it is a state funeral, as rightfully said, where 55 plus million Kenyans are part of it, because our state is the people.
Yeah.
And an opportunity is not given. And at that point, one would argue that we just lost what the man stood for.
Yeah.
What does that say, even if it's milking political capital? For what purpose? The man didn't stand for what it is you're pushing for.
It just shows that the regime, which stands for the opposite of what Raila stood for, is determined to bury his legacy with him. If indeed they understood or honored the man, the funeral proceedings would have been different. There would have been recognition of the different shades of opinion. You will note, Raila, even when he chose running mates, Kalonzo at times and myself, the last election, he chose people who were not in his party. So he not only stood for multipartyism, he practiced it. He didn't have to say, come to my party to be my running mate. Kalonzo remained in his party while being a running mate of Raila. I remained in my party while being his running mate. He appreciated divergent views. We stood on opposite sides a couple of times, fiercely disagreeing, like on the 2007 elections and all that. But the Democrat that he was, he recognized difference of opinion. Because if you take the 2007 for instance, I was Kibaki's agent. I was in PNU. He recognizes that. Therefore, I could not have been his advocate. I was the advocate of my party, just like Governor Orengo was the advocate of his party. So he recognizes that, something many people miss. So he doesn't carry it with him. And there are other occasions. Recently, on matters NADCO, I disagreed on negotiating with William Ruto because he's not sincere. Look at NADCO, 2 years on. What came out of it? What has been implemented? I disagreed with him going into government. But we agreed to disagree, as Democrats do, but remained friends. And that's why I was able to have conversations with him, even when he was on the other side. That's why I was able to tell him in July of this year to reconsider his association with William Ruto, especially after the killings during the commemoration of the 25th of June, followed closely by more killings on the Sabasaba. That's when I called him. So we remained, in touch, each respecting the other's position, but asking him, does it bother him that this is happening?
I'm curious, Martha.
Yeah.
When you did have a conversation with him, what did he say? And I'm asking this because the last couple of days, everybody has told us about, Raila said this, Raila told me, when we were together, he said this. On this particular thing where you called a friend, somebody you'd worked with before, and said, please reconsider this thing because look at the blood that has been spilled. Reconsider this thing. What did he say?
Actually, I told him, I know in your heart of hearts, you stand for the people, and that's what you have done throughout your life. Why are you giving support to a regime doing this? Does it bother you? His words were that he was uncomfortable with what is happening. I told him I was not asking to discuss for his full response then. I just wanted to leave it there with him for him to consider. But I want to give credit to him and say that on more than one occasion, standing publicly with Dr. William Ruto in the public space, he told him to end the abductions, extrajudicial killings, and torture. He did call him out on violation of human rights. Whether that was enough is up to everybody's, the court of public opinion, but he did call him out more than once. Yeah.
What would you have said on the podium during his burial?
I would have said that we fought for multi-party democracy, which is entrenched in our constitution. And therefore, I will remain in opposition, and opposition will remain because it's sanctioned by the constitution. And therefore, the move to bring all parties under one roof is actually unconstitutional. We must have opposition. Number two, I would have said the greatest honor we can give Raila is to follow his ideals. And one is to uphold multipartyism. Two, to uphold the rights of the people. And therefore, the regime must stop violating the rights of the people. Abductions, extrajudicial killings, and torture. And must always act in the best interests of the people. I didn't need more than 90 seconds, but I'm saying it here. Yeah, because you cannot say you are honoring a person and then you continue to do the opposite. Raila's life, most of his life, he was in the trenches fighting for the people. In fact, together with his family, it was a sacrifice that involved the family. He was away from the family many times because of his stand on fighting for the rights of the people. So to honor him, it's not just about decorating him posthumously with medals. It is actually ensuring that what he stood for is what is happening. And we have it embodied in our 2010 Constitution. So let us not have empty words. That's what I would tell Dr. William Ruto, even from the Spice Room. Do what is right. Look at these bills he signed. On the morning, the news of Raila's passing came. He didn't stop for a moment of silence. He quickly signed the bills, knowing very well that they would not be discussed. What would dominate the airwaves is the death of Raila. But Kenyans are going to pick it, and it's beginning to be discussed because all these bills are oppressive. Raila was a Democrat. Ruto is returning us to the dark days.